Hey, good morning. We are going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you to the crisis training, the Evergreen crisis training. For me, it's a very exciting day to be here. You all are the first class, so you get to see Evergreen hot off the presses. My name is Lisa Karth. I'm with FEI, and I'm going to be your facilitator for today. Behind the scenes, I have Jack Horning, who is going to be manning our questions and answers. I also have with me Leslie Miska. Leslie, if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to turn my camera on, but I don't think I can do that. Telling me you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. So that's okay. You guys all know me anyway. For those of you that are here, Leslie Miska, Office of Information Services Manager for the Office of Aging and Disability Services. We're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, this is a webinar, and so therefore you get to see me. And this is being recorded, so you will have access to the recording after we get started. Let me tell you about our agenda today. Our focus is on functionality. It's on the technical use of Evergreen. So I want to introduce you to the system, help you see how it's laid out, because I think that might help you in understanding the connections between different things. And then we're going to talk about the crisis management forms. And there's 12 forms. Some of these you're going to be very familiar with. Some of them have a new name. And some of them, it's multiple forms combined together. But you're going to find a lot of consistency between the forms. You're going to find them very easy to fill out in the system. And you're going to see lots of cool actions that Evergreen does to help you out with those forms. We're also going to talk about reportable events, and then we'll wrap things up by talking about the next steps. Excuse me. So prior to this training, you hopefully completed the Evergreen microlearning videos. These videos are provide a foundation for navigation within Evergreen and can be reviewed at any time. They're going to be available to you forever. So the search microlearning introduces you to Evergreen and goes through, of course, the search process, accessing the dashboards, and then searching for staff, locations, organizations. We have a dashboard video that goes in depth into your dashboard as well as the person dashboard. There's a video specific to the person record, and the person record holds the demographic and personal information for the clients or members, beneficiaries. There's also health information stored in the system, so there's a video specific to that. Queries and notifications are some great tools to help you out with managing your work, finding out what might be coming up, what you need to work on. I highly encourage using and viewing that one. There's also forms, letters, and progress notes. This is where you do a lot of your work pertaining to the person. You're capturing information, you're sending information. And then lastly, there is a video on attachments. You can add attachments to the person's record. You can also add them to a form, and you're going to see that today. So we are not covering any of those today. I may touch on them at a very high level. So if you have not yet viewed these, please take a moment to do so. Now, with this being a listen-only webinar, you don't have the ability to ask me questions. Instead, Zoom is providing you with a tool. On your toolbar down at the bottom, there's a Q&A icon. And within that Q&A, you can type in your answers. Leslie is going to be receiving them, as are Jack, as is Jack. Anyway, the two of them will receive the questions, and Leslie will provide a response. In some instances, she may ask you to hold on because it may be information that's coming up, or it may be the answer may be have more components than one would expect. So please know that if there is anything that's not answered in the Q&A, it will get answered, okay? You also have on your icon or your toolbar a chat, and in that, that's a way for us to send you information. And Jack has put into the chat a link to where the micro-learnings are, so you can check that out. We are going to take breaks roughly every hour. Let you get up and stretch. And right after the break, I'm going to give Leslie a couple minutes to answer any questions that might have come through. And if I forget, Leslie, please don't hesitate to remind me. I get very into what I'm doing and what I'm talking about. I get very excited and single track mind. So, excuse me, Evergreen. There are two parts to Evergreen. The person record, which is our focus today, and then there's also adult protective services reports, or APS reports. And the commonality between these two is the person record. The person record contains all of the relevant information on the person, such as their demographics, their health information, their forms, and so much more. Now, when you hear references to Evergreen, that's a reference to the person record and the case management actions that you do to support your folks, your person's clients, members. The APS report side is referred to as APS reports or adult protective services. So Evergreen is going to have some oohs and ahs in it for you. And Leslie, I know, is very excited about these, as is the Maine Department of Health and Human Services and the Evergreen team. I know I'm very excited that you have these. And I think that you're going to help, you're going to find that they really make your life a little easier. So some of the things that you're going to find that's available to you with this, Evergreen's going to capture and store all of the crisis data. So you have all of that in one place for each person. You're going to be able to upload attachments to the person record and do that within certain forms. And like I said, I'll show you that today. You're going to be able to run queries. These are basically filters, and it's a list of outstanding work by person. You're also going to have access to reports. Electronic signatures can be captured. So that might minimize some of the forms you have to carry around. Now, in addition, you're going to find that there is an enhanced person record, and there's information that's captured in that person record. And with it being captured there, it automatically populates certain forms and certain other areas of the system. You're going to find that there's a person summary tab that has critical information about the person. This includes alerts about them, crisis level, their assigned case manager, guardianship, conservatorship details, and so much more. You're going to see common data is displayed, and it's captured once. So that's pretty cool. Doesn't have to be done again and again and again. You're going to find that there's I'm sorry. I went to the beach and I came back with obviously a cough. Um, there are standardized data capture. And what I mean by that is that there's lots of standardization throughout the form. You're going to find, or excuse me, throughout the system, you're going to find a lot of consistency. And part of this includes certain fields that are required. Evergreen's going to tell you that. It's going to have field level validations. Yeah, Evergreen's going to take care of that. You will not even know that it's happening. There are form workflows, and Evergreen's automatically going to send the form through the workflows. And it's also going to, it's got the checks and balances that come with your business rules. So it's going to do that for you. And then there is laptop and tablet compatibility. So that gives you flexibility within the system. The life cycle of managed care. And I wanted you to see this because, excuse me, Evergreen covers all of this. It covers this and so much more. So we know that managed care starts with information and the referral. Either the person or a family member reaches out for information or request for services. The intake occurs, and then once that occurs, there is the handoff for case management, and that's where the assessment, the initial assessment, and then the reassessments occur. We then move into the individual support plan and prior authorization. It's like, what is the process? What's the strategy that we're going to use to provide this person with the best possible life? And there's the prior authorization for the services. Some people call these, I've heard them referred to as service authorizations. There's the prior authorizations. Because, of course, within this plan, it gets followed up with the delivery of services. And of course, there's payment for those services. And that payment amount's going to be captured. So that's pretty cool. The billing is not done through, excuse me, Evergreen. However, it is captured, and that's pretty cool. There's then the eventual case closure because somebody passes away or they no longer need services. And then, of course, throughout this process, there is reporting. So I want to tell you about how Evergreen is organized, because this may help you out with your navigation of the system. Starting at the top, there's the organization. This is who you work for. And for external users, MaineCare and other contracted providers, such as Disability Rights Maine, it's the parent or top level agency. And for those of you who are internal users, it's ODES, or your state staff. We then go into locations, and this is where you physically work, or it's the organization that you work under and you're dispatched from or you conduct work under. It's a state or district or central office for state employees. And then there's staff. And staff are system users that are assigned to one or more locations. Now, the staff are assigned to the person to make sure that the person goes through every step of the case management process. And one of the cool things about Evergreen is that it has role-based access. So that means staff have access to what they need to be able to do their job. So Evergreen is not going to let somebody do something that is outside their assigned actions or duties. And lastly, we have the persons. These are the clients or members. That's the terminology you're used to. It's the person who's needing the services and supports. Our focus today is the interactions between you as staff members and the persons you serve. So I first want to talk about logging into Evergreen and how to access it. You know, this is the very first thing you have to do once you go live. And when it comes to logging in, you obviously have to have a URL or the web address. You have to have a username and password. And so you input the username and the password. And of course, there's the login button. And once you hit that login button, there's an acknowledge button that comes up. You have to acknowledge that you are an authorized user of the system. Now, if you forget your password, there is this nifty little forgot password link here. So you can click on that. And like so many other applications you use on a personal level, you input your email address and then you get an email back with instructions on how to reset your password. Okay. Now then, you're going to have access to the training environment and you're going to log into it this exact same way. Everybody, though, is using the same login. So please do not use that forgot password link. Okay. If you do, you're messing everybody up. I will get a phone call about it, and I'm going to reset the password back to what it originally was. So while in training, pretend that link does not exist. So you've logged in, you've gotten the acknowledgement. For some of you, there is this screen that's going to show up, and you are certainly going to see this in training. But for people who work for multiple organizations and or locations, you have to tell Evergreen which organization you're working under, and then which location you're working under. For some staff members, they're able to work on behalf of someone else. Maybe somebody's on vacation or on a leave. If that's the case, for instance, Jack's on vacation, I'm working on her behalf, I would have to tell Evergreen that. This is the dashboard when you log in, and everybody's dashboard is going to look a little bit different because, again, remember, access to Evergreen is role-based. And so you have access to what you need to do your job. Up at the top, there is the navigation toolbar, or you've also heard it called the top level persistent menu. There are then tiles within the dashboard, the announcements tile, the caseload, my tasks, which are actions to complete about a person, my notes, which are the sticky notes, much like a post-it note, and then the messages inbox. And just one thing I want to share with messages is that these are messages to other users in Evergreen. These messages do not go outside of the system for privacy purposes. There is the person search. And this is in the top navigation header or the top level persistent menu. And you're just going to hear me call it the navigation header. Within this search, you have to the left of the search field a little button that shows the profile of a person or the outline of a person. And when you click on this, it shows all the different categories that you can search on. Once you select the category, you would input the information. Now then, if you are ever searching for a staff member, location, organization, I guarantee you are going to forget to change that drop down at some point. So if you ever don't get results, the results you're looking for, first thing you're going to do is check, do I have the right category? And I know that it's going to be missed at times because after having worked in the system for a couple years, still miss it at times. So you have the drop down, then you input the search criteria. And then your results are going to be displayed, and you're just going to click on the record to open it up. Now then, I want to take a time out for a minute and tell you about searching for your person in training, okay? So with training, you're going to be assigned a person. And when you do that, you're going to log into Evergreen, the training environment. And to locate your person within this navigation header, you're going to come over to advanced search. Okay, that's the magnifying glass with a plus in it. And when you click on that, you're going to enter your person's first name, which is going to be crisis for everyone. And then the last name is person with a number. Okay, it might be person 59, person 3. And then you're going to hit search. And when you get that, you may get multiple results. Because if you notice on this, the search was for person 2. Well, person 20 also has a 2 in it. Person 22 has a couple of 2s. So you would click on this arrow that's to the right of the last name column. When you click on that, that's going to put that last name in numerical order so you can easily locate your person. And you will click on the record of your particular person, okay? So I highly encourage use of advanced search and use of this last name sort. It will make things very easy for you when it comes to finding your person. We have a lot of people using the training environment, and everyone has persons assigned to them. The persons all have very similar names. Please use only your assigned person. Otherwise, you'll mess someone else up. Here is the person record. And I want you to notice that we went right into the person dashboard. And this does have some tiles, just like your dashboard does. They're a little bit different from yours. I also want to show you here, you can see it's a different dashboard. This one shows some notifications, which are alerts to let you know something's occurred on a record. And then within this person record, on this left navigation menu, coming down, there is a forms icon. And this opens up the list of forms. This is where we're going to spend a lot of time today. Now, as we go through things with Evergreen, you're going to find that there's lots of different messages in there. And these are some of them. You may see some of them. You may see all of them. But I want to let you know the types of things out there. There's ghost text with a corresponding light bulb. So you can't quite see it in this add strength picture, but the text for the strength is very light gray. And it's to give you guidance on what to input. Well, the light bulb has the same information, so you can get it in 2 places. There's message boxes that have the different types of messages. Please read them. They provide really helpful guidance. I do want to point out that this pink message is an error message, and these are not bad things. The error messages are there to help make sure you do things right the first time. Evergreen has guardrails in it, and so these guardrails will result with error messages to make sure that nothing is missed. So that's pretty cool. And I love this about the error messages. It tells you exactly what is wrong. You know, we've all experienced those times when we're getting a message that there's an error of some sort and we can't find it. Evergreen's going to tell you exactly what it is. And then there's also person-centered thinking tools that are available in this in particular, the person-centered plan. But you'll see helpful tools throughout the system. So let me show you the login. Sorry, my finger slipped there for a minute. Okay, I had logged out or logged into Evergreen to make sure I could get into the system. And obviously, Evergreen's going to time out. It's about, I think, 20 minutes. So there's a long time. And if you just wiggle your mouse, that'll keep it going for you. And I am actually going to log out of this because I want you to see the login from the beginning. So I clicked on the login button and my username is crisis.01. Everybody for training is going to use that same login. And the password, my password for training is password with a capital P, password 123 hashtag. You don't have to remember this. You will receive all of this information. So when I click the login button, here's my acknowledgement screen. So I acknowledge I'm an authorized user. And here's where I have to identify the organization, location, and staff member. In the training environment, things are pretty generic. So everyone will have to identify these items. The organization is always Evergreen Training here. And the location is Baxter Foundation. Again, for training, you're going to be told all of this. You're going to have it in a written format, so don't worry about remembering. But I do want to show you that when I select Evergreen, the only locations I have are Baxter or Watchtower. Evergreen automatically said, okay, this is your organization. These are the only locations you can select. So it narrowed the search for me. And then the staff member is going to be self. Always select self for now. And then I click login, and here is the dashboard. This is my user dashboard. Up at the top, the Evergreen logo, if you notice, my pointer turned into a finger that's pointing. Upper left corner, that Evergreen logo, that's where you click to return to this homepage, because this navigation header is here all the time. Here is the person search, and there's that trusty advanced search, and then there's various other tools. Now, when you go live with the system, you are not going to see all of these different things up here. The reason you see it now is because we had to give you a very generic login. It has more access than you will typically have. And you're going to hear me mention that a couple times, because when it comes to go live, if you have a moment where you're like, wait a minute, things look different in training. Oh yeah, Lisa told me I'd have more access in training. Okay. You're not going to be missing anything on Go Live. You'll have everything that you need. For now, we just had to give you a few extra things. There are the announcements. Please be sure to take a look at these and read these. The case load, and click on these and it accesses the person. The tasks are, as I mentioned, about the person, and please do refer to the micro learning to learn more about tasks. There's the messages inbox, which also aligns with the messages in the navigation header. And my notes, the sticky notes, which also have their own icon on the navigation header, the piece of paper with a pencil on it. And so here, I want to do a search for a person. And our person for today is going to be Paige Carr. The default is to the person search. And so I'm in good shape. And actually, before I do Paige Carr, I want to show you how to do your search. So when you are practicing in the training environment, you'll come over here to the advanced search, that magnifying glass with a plus in it. And when I click on that, my first name is always going to be crisis. And I'm going to do person 20. And I'll search. There's only one person 20. So when I click on the record, I automatically enter that. Well, let me do another search for another person. Here we have a bunch of fives. Down at the bottom, you can see here that there are 11 records displayed. Well, I can either scroll all the way down through these 11 people, or up here on the last name column, to the right of it, there's that little arrow. When I click on that, that changes the sort, so I can easily find my person 5. For our purposes today, I'm going to use Paige Carr. So I'm clicking to open her record, and this is her person dashboard. Yeah. There's in the ribbon key information about Paige, and then we have the right navigation menu. I want to point out the progress notes, because you all use these a lot. There's that progress notes icon. And from here, you'll be able to use that add new progress note button in that upper left. And there are a variety of different types of notes. And look, your crisis notes are right at the very top. And I'm not going to do that today. I'll let you play in the system and complete that. So with this, let's start to move into some of your forms. So these are all of the crisis forms we're going to talk about today. And there's a lot of forms. We're going to touch on all of them because they're all a little bit different. These, some of these request different information than what you're used to. A lot of it's requesting the very same information. We want to make sure that you have seen all of these in advance, which is why we're going to go through all of them. They all have little bit of nuances to them. You're going to, as we go through this, you're going to see some of the forms have pre-populated fields based on information that's already in the person record. You're going to hear me mention notifications throughout our time together. The notifications are alerts that let you know of a change in status or if something is needed. It's one of the tools built into Evergreen so that you don't have to guess. You don't have to do a bunch of manual tracking. Evergreen's going to do it for you. So we want to start with a crisis intake form. And actually, before I get started on this form, Leslie, I wanted to check in with you to see if there was any general information you wanted to share with folks.
Not right now, I don't think, Lisa. I guess what I will just say is we will also be doing a crisis business process training session. It is out on our website. You can register for that as well, where we'll take a little bit deeper dive into some of these forms. So definitely this training today is the technical training that Lisa will guide you through, and she'll show you how to navigate the system and how to find all of your notes and forms and things like that. But the January training will take a little bit deeper dive into those notes and forms for you.
Yeah. And so do send your questions to Leslie. She will be making a note of all of them, and we'll be sending her a list as well. Because every question has value. Our focus today is on the technology. And the other thing is, as we go through this, I want you to try to resist comparing what I share with you today with your current processes. Okay. It's a natural thing to try and do. And what I found in my years and years of doing this, lots of different companies, lots of different industries, is that when people start trying to make comparisons at the outset, it actually makes things harder for them. And the reason for that is you don't have enough information yet to be able to make a comparison. So what I'd like you to do in our time together is to listen to what I'm saying, watch what I'm doing, and later on, then maybe start to do your comparisons with your current processes. But for right now, just focus on Evergreen. It's like a new cookie recipe, and all cookie recipes are different, particularly at this time of year. So anyway, our crisis intake form. So each form, when you go to start it, it starts with a form category. You select the form category, and then you select the particular form. And here, obviously, we're doing the crisis intake form. At the top of each form, it's going to have the form name, and then there's going to be a bunch of different tools right underneath the form name. This form has a couple of different sections on it, and the referral source is needed for you to be able to move forward in the workflow. You see up here, there's completion requirements. When I show you this, you're going to find this referral source is a completion requirement. The call details is financial eligibility, and that's in the person record. And then there's also crisis contact details. Now, within this form, within every form really, up at the top, you have a status. And the form, most forms, 99% of them, start out with an in-progress status. You then have a drop-down, and the drop-down has selections. You make these selections to move the form to the next step in the workflow. Oh. Okay, back where I was. So in this particular form, it's unique in that the only option here is close. And for this form, you have to select the reason that you're closing the form. You can see there's only 3 options. And once you do, the status is updated and then the reason is identified. And that change in status is what moves the form to the crisis team. So let me show you this form in the system. I apparently had 2 Chromes open. Here we go. Back to where we are. I'm going to once again do a search, and I'm going to do I'm going to click my Evergreen in the upper left corner to return to the home page. And I'm going to use the advanced search for now, because that's what you're going to use while practicing in your training. And I have page, car, and then I'll hit search. Here's page when I'm going to click to open the record. And here, just like before, I'm in Pages record. Here's the dashboard. The person summary that was mentioned. There's not a lot of information in there right now. The person record. This is where a lot of the information that's populated into forms comes from. Within the person record, I'm going to come over here to the far right. There's this toggle button. And when I open this up, I can see all of the different information that's available here. And so this is something that you'll want to scroll through. In the person record, there's add buttons in the lower right, so you can always add more information. With existing information, if you put your cursor over that information, you can edit it if you have the pencil icon. You can also delete it if you have the trash can, but you have to have those icons to be able to take action on it. There's then the health information, and this is organized by tabs. So each tab has different information available. And I can click to open it up, see more information. There's history information. These are associated with the various domains that you work with, and they provide information and background. Typically, you're going to see in history a narrative. You're not going to see just the word info. We keep things simple in the training environment. The progress notes, there's the appointments and meetings, attachments, assignment shows, location assignment, and the staff assignments. And then we come down to our forms here. And Page has been in the system. There's a lot of forms already out there on Page, and that's okay. We're going to add some more. So to add a new form, I'm going to come to the upper left corner, and I'm going to click the button New Form. I'm going to select the form category, which Crisis Services has its own category. Well, when it comes to forms, the only available selections are forms that fall under that category. So I want to find the right one. And there's the crisis intake form. That's the one I'm looking for. I want to point out you have the crisis home intake. That's a different form. We're going to talk about that one later on. So we're going to start with a crisis intake. I have that filled in and I click next. I'm being asked, am I sure I want to create this form? I'm going to say, yes, I do. So I'm going to save it. I'm now in the crisis intake form. Across the top, I have the status, and in this drop down, I have close. That's the only thing I'm going to be able to select when I'm all done with this. I have the completion requirement. And when I click on this, it opens it up and it says crisis intake. Well, there's this little plus button to the left of crisis intake. And when I click on that, excuse me, it tells me exactly what the completion requirement is, and it's the referral source. The orange circle means that this is not yet completed. This chain turns into a green check mark. Expand all allows me to see this form in all of its entirety. I'm going to close it up for now. And then there's this toggle on the far right. When that's opened up, it's a tool to easily navigate through the different sections of the form. I'm going to start at the top and just work my way down this. So here I have the referral source. When I run my cursor over the section, my pointer became a pointing finger. So I know I can click to open it up, and the type, I am just going to say this was a family referral, and I can put in additional name information here. Now, the type, notice that has a red asterisk and the orange bar on the far left of the field. That means this information is required by Evergreen in order to save the information on this screen. If I didn't identify the type, I would not be able to save this information. The remaining information is optional. And of course, if it's available, it's going to be collected, but a lot of times it's not available. Once this is filled in, I click on Save. And I want to show you my completion requirement's been met. I have a green check mark. So that's pretty cool. I'm still going to come down to the second category, the call details, and I'm going to click to open this up. This is optional information. I'm still going to go ahead and fill it in. For our purposes today, I'm just going to, in all of the open fields, type in info. You don't want to watch me type in a whole bunch of different information. So now I'm going to click Save. Before I do that, notice the date automatically populated by Evergreen, so I don't have to do that. I'm going to save the information. And lastly, I'm going to come down to crisis contact details. I'm going to click to open it up, and I need to identify the crisis staff contacted. It's going to be crisis staff 1. That's who you are when you're working in the training environment. The contact method, I'm going to just say it's phone, and then the response received, and I click Save. Now, when this form is filled out and I no longer want to make any changes to it, that's when I can update the status. Now, like I mentioned earlier, my only option is close. And close in Evergreen typically means the form is not needed. It's dead. It's got a void stamp on it. This is one of the few, if not the only, forms where close means something a little different. When I click on close, I have to identify the reason. And there are 3 potential reasons. One is it's closed at intake. One, it's created an error, or it's transferred to the crisis team. I'm going to select transferred to the crisis team, and I'm going to click Save. And this form is now closed, and it tells me why. So in this instance, it's closed because the intake is being closed out. And this is moving on to the crisis team. Crisis team members are going to get a notification. Remember, those are up in the navigation header. And that notification is going to say, hey, there's a crisis intake form for you. You would click on that and open the form up and see all of the details and information on it. Okay. So this is the crisis intake form. Leslie, before I give folks a break, is there anything you want to add about this form?
The only thing, Lisa, and I didn't share this with you either, but when I talked to Lori, this is a brand new form. It doesn't exist right now, and it was originally created because there was a plan for ODEs to take over their own intake. That didn't materialize, so we may not use this form right away, starting on January 16th. But it is a form that was built, it is available, and we will discuss with Lori whether or not it makes any sense for any of our team members to use this form at this time, or whether we might have our intake, the individuals that are doing our intake maybe use the system directly and enter them in here for us. So still up in the air on this form.
Other forms are being used, right?
Yes, all the rest
Okay.
of the forms will be used. This one, just change of plans along the way there. So we may need to get some external users in to use this form at some point, right after we go live.
That sounds good. I wanted people to know moving forward, yes, it's forms that you're going to use. So do come back. We're going to take a 5-minute break and come back at 9 o'clock. At that time, we're going to go into the emergency disposition.
Thank you, Lisa.
And we are back. So now we want to move into the ER disposition. So this form is accessed just like the crisis intake form. This form documents information learned when meeting with the person on emergency room visits while they're under crisis care. The form allows you, as you can see down at the bottom here, to add follow-ups as needed. Now, once the status on this form is updated, then a notification is sent to the crisis worker to inform them of the need for a 24-hour follow-up and that the post-crisis review form is needed. Okay, so again, you don't need to remember that, oh yeah, after I do this, I have to call somebody and they'll have to do this other form. No, 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 no. You let the system do it for you. When you update the status, a notification goes out to the appropriate people, alerting them that the post-crisis review form is needed. And so this way, no need to question if there are actions pending. And so let me show you this form now. I'm going to come back up here to the upper left corner and click the Evergreen button so I return to the home page. I'm doing that because I want to reinforce that that's how you get back to the home page. Now, typically, you would look at your notifications here and you would open it up and you would see a notification and you would click on it. Well, notifications in the training environment are turned off just because it would be too chaotic. So for training purposes, we're searching. I'm going to click to open the record. I'm going to come in this left navigation menu down to forms and plans, and I click on that. And again, I have the whole list of forms here. You can see the crisis intake that we just did, and you can see the status is closed. From the ellipsis, I can open the form. You will likely not see archive, and you may not see remove either. Remember, the access is role-based. You'll only have access to what you need to do your job. And right now, for training purposes, everybody has a whole lot more access than they would typically have. In this upper left corner, I'm going to click Add New Form. I need to select the form category. And again, I'm just going to stick with crisis services. And the form type in this instance is the emergency room disposition. So I click on that and I say next. Am I sure that I want to create this form? And I'm going to save it, saying, yes, I do. So notice that there's all this consistency in the system. Again, underneath the title, I have the status. And within this status dropdown, I have two actions, close and complete. Close in this form means that the form was not needed. Okay. And close is, in this instance, like putting a big red void stamp on the form. Nothing can be done with it. It can't be opened back up. It can't be edited. nothing can be done with it. Complete means all done. There are then the completion requirements. And again, in this instance, we have two. Our expand all button. So if I wanted to see everything in one long list, I could. And then the toggle. Now, one of the cool things about Evergreen is that you can really move around to whatever order you would like to complete things. I'm doing it in a very linear order for learning purposes. So I'm going to start at the top with the emergency disposition, and I'm going to click to engage this. And I'm going to say the contact type was in person, and the date of contact, I'm just going to say it was today. Notice the crisis worker defaults. Today, logged in, my name is Crisis Staff 1. And I'm going to click Save. So this is all filled in now. Now I'm going to do the emergency stay information. So I clicked to open up that section. I'm going to click to engage it. The notification, I'm going to say came from the hospital. This is a required field. It's got the little exclamation mark. Now, I had told you about the red asterisks as a required field. Let me tell you about these exclamation marks now. The exclamation marks are required fields for the form. And what this means is that you have to have that filled in order to complete the form. But we also know that you may not have all the information at one time. So fields with this exclamation mark allow you to complete part of the form. You can save the information and go in and out. Now then, I did this purposely. While I just said, yes, if it's the exclamation mark, you can go in and out. This particular field, location of the person during the psychiatric assessment, has the little star. And if you remember, I said that the star information is needed in order to save the screen. So this one we have to fill in right now. And it's going to give me a reminder of all those things that I hadn't yet filled in. I'm just going to work my way down the form. Going to back up to, say, the psychiatric assessment had been completed. With that, I got a new field. I need to identify the method. And I'm going to say it was in person. And I'm just going to identify a couple of things here. The boxes mean I can select one item or I can select multiple items. If I select other, I have to explain what other means. The date in, I'm just going to use today, and I'm going to make it 8:00 a.m. My times are not going to make sense. I realize that. And out. Remember, my purpose is just to show you how the navigation works. They're discharged to, I'm going to say the DD crisis bed. The location. The transported by is not required. I'm going to leave that blank, so I'm going to save. Now I'm going to follow up. I can add a follow-up now. I have 4 follow-ups and this little button in the lower left corner. So I can add the follow-up. I'm going to add the type. And actually, obviously, since the person just got out today, well, it's a little early for a follow-up. So I'm not going to add one right now. I know this form is completed, though. So I'm going to click complete. It's going to say I'm not going to be able to make updates. Am I sure? And I'm going to click continue. The form is completed. All of the completion requirements were met. I would not have been able to complete it if it wasn't. But there's follow-ups that we know are needed. That I can still add by clicking that add follow-up button. I can add the type. We're going to pretend 24 hours has passed by. I identify how the contact occurred, who I contacted, and I click save. I want to add one more follow-up because you see all of these follow-up, the different time frames. Evergreen sends out a notification every time a required follow-up is needed. So you don't have to remember, you don't have to mark a calendar. Evergreen is automatically going to let you know when something is required. Okay, I'm going to move on now to the crisis housing assessment. I'm just taking a look at my notes to make sure I'm telling you everything.
This form is currently called the needs assessment, the crisis needs assessment. So this one should be very familiar to everybody.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, form, look, it started the same way. Selected the form category and then the form name. The top of the screen looks much like the top of the other screens. And so here you have the different sections of the form. Now, there are notifications that are sent to the crisis team lead who updates the status to review and adds comments. That's once it's been submitted. So there's notifications every time the form moves to the next stage. Now, I could tell you about all of these different sections here. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to jump right into the demonstration because I think it'll be more interesting for you to hear about the different sections when you can actually see them. So let me go back here to Evergreen. And for now, I'm just going to stay in the forms list. I have this back button here. I'm just going to click on the back button. It returned me to the forms list. And now at the top, you can see that emergency room disposition. And you can see that it, lots of information about it, that it was completed. That's the status completed. To add the new form, I'm going to click Add New Form in this upper left corner. I have the form category, which is going to be Crisis Services. And the form I'm looking for now is the Crisis Housing Assessment. And I click Next, and I'm going to save because
I grabbed the wrong one, Lisa.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They look exactly the same and they're right next to each other. You grabbed the agreement instead of the assessment.
Okay, so let me try that again. Good lesson. When you look at these, if that I had received an error message that I did not catch, if I had opened the wrong form in error, I can close it, okay? Because we know that happens. Crisis Housing Assessment. So I'm going to click Next and save it. Again, here are my statuses where I can complete this or close this to move this on. Close is that big red void stamp. I have my completion requirements. I have the expand all button and I have the toggle. This form has more sections. So again, you can jump around, but since we're learning the form, we're going to start at the top and work our way down. So I'm going to start with the person demographic information. You can see my cursor is in here and I cannot, I'm clicking and nothing's happening. I cannot make edits to this information. Notice there's the name page car. It defaulted because I'm in Paige's record. Paige's phone number is in the record icon, so that's here, as is her date of birth. The person ID is a number assigned by Evergreen that cannot be changed. All of this information came from the person record, so that person record icon, just to clarify, it came from here, because we have this record icon with the demographic information, but then admittedly, we also refer to the whole thing, all encompassing as record. But all of this information came from this record icon. I'm going to scroll down here to contacts. And again, the contacts here have already been filled in. There's the case manager that's assigned to Paige, and there's information on the case manager. This came from Evergreen, so it cannot be changed. The guardian information is here. The guardian is listed in the record icon under contacts. Again, the information was collected once. You don't have to collect it again because it's already there. There's then the referral information. Now here, my cursor turned into the pointer finger. So I'm going to click to engage this. And here I need to identify the source. And I'm just going to say the case manager, the reason for the referral. I'm making random selections, so it's just showing you how to fill out the form. The current living situation, supports, and I have to explain it. Now, before I do this, I'm going to scroll down. There are no red exclamation marks on this, so I want to show you I can save this. My completion requirements, it shows me the referral information is not yet done. I can click to open this back up and I can finish completing this section. Services the individual is eligible for. Again, this came from Evergreen. And the external services, we can identify that. That was a required field. For today, I'm only focusing on required fields. The address came from that person record icon, so we don't need to worry about that. And I click Save. I want to close this section. For me, it's cleaner if I have sections closed. You may want to work with all the sections open. Behavioral information, the diagnosis. This information came from the health information. In the health information, there is a diagnosis tab. So this was already in Evergreen. I did not add it. Now, risk behaviors. There is this comprehensive assessment quick view. And again, when I'm running my cursor over it, I get the pointer finger, I click on that, and this opens up and tells me all of the information that came from the comp assessment when it comes to the risk behaviors. I'm going to close that back up. And again, I'm going to click to engage this. So I would identify the behaviors and the reason for the behaviors, because I'm focusing on the required forms. Here, you can access the individual support team. And down here, there's the positive support plan. So if there's an existing positive support plan, it would already be here. But when I click on that link, this is opening up the attachments. I'm in the attachment section of Pages record. Okay. So the system automatically brought me here so I could find the attachment I was looking for. I'm going to click back. Or actually, I'm not going to click back. Notice when I clicked on that, it opened up a second tab. I can just close this tab and I'm back where I was. So when I clicked on this positive support plan, it's got the paperclip showing me it's an attachment. It opened up the attachment section of the system automatically. And it opened it up in a separate tab so I don't have to go out of this form into attachments, go back to attachments, or excuse me, then go back to forms. It made it so much easier for me. And again, there's information that would be here if there was a form in existence. It is same for the safety device approval packet. I'm going to show you that a little bit later on. That form has been started, but it's got a status of pending committee review. So that's that section. And I'm going to scroll up because I'm going to close it up. And now I want to move to crisis information. And here is the crisis related to housing. I'm going to say yes. Is it related to funding? And I'm just making random selections here. And I'm just going to scroll down to the overall level of supervision. This is a drop-down menu. So when I click on this, this gives me a list of what might be needed, and it's giving me the description here. So I don't need to guess what it means. So I'm going to click that. The primary language, if this was in the person record icon, it would be added here. It's not there, so there's no primary language identified. And I'm going to click Save. My completion requirements, I'm doing well. I have 3 out of the 4 sections for that are required are completed. So my last section that's required is the medical section. So critical alerts. There are no critical alerts in the person record icon. So this is blank. For allergies, this came from the health information, the allergies tab, and it says Paige is allergic to bananas. Well, I have one other field, so I clicked to engage it, and I'd identify any other medical conditions or concerns, save the information. Well, I'm all done with my completion requirements, so I could conceivably update the status right now, but there's a place here where I can make recommendations. All of these fields are optional, but notice that there is a long list of these things, and I'm aware that I'm scrolling through them pretty quickly. Okay, but you would want to make sure to fill this in before you complete the form, or before you, if you close it, it's the big red void stamp. But once I click complete, I can't make edits to this. I'm going to go ahead and click on complete. It's going to ask if I'm sure. I can't add review dates and comments. So again, read the messages, because sometimes it's going to tell you you can't make any edits. In this type instance, it's telling me the few things I can add. And I click continue. This status is completed. So this is the crisis housing form, crisis housing assessment. I'm going to come back to my PowerPoint. And we're going to move into the individual support team form. This is another one of your commonly used forms. So there are two ways this form is completed. One, it's recommended in the crisis housing assessment or the post-crisis review. And we're going to talk about that. Got to make sure I get my note. The crisis housing assessment we just talked about. The post-crisis review we're going to talk about. Now, the need may also have been identified during the comprehensive assessment and the person-centered planning process. All ISTs created since the most recent comprehensive assessment will display in the safety and security plan sections of the next comprehensive assessment. So what this is saying is that if I complete an IST form today, the next time I do a comprehensive assessment for page, the IST that I've done today is going to show up in that comprehensive assessment. So the case manager doesn't have to go searching for it. So this is a great illustration of the sophistication of Evergreen and how it's going to make information available to you as you need it. Now, this form is started by the case manager and then completed by the IST at the IST meeting. So the case manager, to inactivate the form, or will inactivate it when the IST can be closed. So there are notifications with the IST process, and this tracks actions and provides reminders so that you don't have to track it. Evergreen is going to do this for you. And so for the crisis worker, they're going to get a notification when the status is sent to complete or inactive, informing them to complete a 24-hour follow-up. So again, there's a status change or an action that's needed. On day 10, the crisis worker is going to receive another notification, informing them of the status of the form, and to complete the 10-day follow-up. So it's telling you the actions that are required. Guess what? There is another notification sent at the 3-month mark. And then the assigned case manager and all active providers for the person, they get a notification when the status is set to complete and the follow-up says the IST can be closed, okay? So there's 2 notifications. Now, do I expect you to remember all these notifications? No. Does Leslie expect you to remember all the notifications? No. It's just not possible. Just know the notifications are there and it's doing the tracking for you. Now then, when you're in the notifications, at some point, you're going to have a long list of notifications. And you can do a search for notifications based on a number of criteria. Here you can see we've opened up the little magnifying glass with the plus sign on it. And we've opened up the advanced search. And the area we have identified is we want to search on the individual support team. From there, we clicked search. And here are the results we received. You can see the area. All of these are for the individual support team. So we can more easily locate the IST. So let me show you what this looks like in the system. And I'm going to come back here to the home page. I'm going to open up Pages Record. I'm coming down to the Forms icon. I'm going to click Add New Form. The form category, Leslie, don't say anything, please. I'm going to select is Crisis Services, because that's what we've been working in. And I'm going to look at my drop down here. Okay, wait a minute. There's no IST form here. That's okay, because that means the form is not under Crisis Services. I made the wrong selection. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to give Case and Care Plans and Forms a try. And when I click on that, I'm going to get a different set of forms. And I'm going to scroll down. There is the form I'm looking for. So my point in showing you that is that if you are looking under crisis or any other category and cannot find the form, look under a different category. Okay, it is there. Just like before, I'm going to click next to say I want to do it and save to confirm. Here, this looks just like every other form. The status is my completion requirements, my expand all, and my toggle. So I'm going to start at the top with the individual support team. And you can see a lot of information has already pre-populated here. The meeting date, I'm just going to identify today's date. And then the address information came from the person record icon. There's additional information here. I'm going to complete my required fields. And these questions are very similar to what you have already been completing. Is there a training need? And there's a number of selections. The last one, there is not a training need at this time, and the reasons are documented below. And I'm going to make that selection. Now, notice this is a round circle. That means you can only select one item. Up here with the plans to implement, I could select multiple items. Now there's also a none button. You can't tell, but I'm clicking on this and nothing happens. Well, I can't select none because I've made other selections. I can select none if I haven't made other selections, but I can't click anything else. And the reason for that is it doesn't make sense to say none and have something else completed. Evergreen's has that guardrail to prevent that error. Can't accidentally happen. I'm going to work my way down here. And here I have the IST follow updates. And I can identify the follow update. I can add an additional follow update because you see that there is this little plus icon over on the far right side. When I click that, I get a field for another follow update. And I can even add a third one. Now then, turns out I don't need those extra follow updates, so I'm going to click minus on this and minus because I want to get rid of them. If I have them there, I have to fill them in. And I'm going to save this information. And I'm going to work my way down the form to the IST members. And I'm going to add here the IST members. And from the participants, I select staff member, contact, and other. Well, I want to show you what staff member looks like. And here's all the different staff members that I could select. And I'm going to select, let's see. Leslie, I'm going to ask for your help here.
Yep.
The reason it's not allowing me to make a selection.
I'm not going to be able to help you with that, Lisa. I don't know.
Okay, we're going to do a takeaway on that, and we're going to find out the reason for that. Now, the first thing people go to, you may be thinking it is, oh, the system is broken. The system is not broken. Trust me. The reason I can't make this selection, there is a specific reason why I can't. I just don't know what it is. And that's what I have to research for you. And I'm going to save this. Okay. So one of the things that I want to point out here, and again, I'm going to get more information, that whole long list of roles. Ooh, I'm going to just click this. IST members. I couldn't select anything, but all of those staff members listed showed up here. And I am sure that that is associated with the way we have set up the training environment, because everybody has the same level of access, and it's a lot of access. So we will get you more information on that. Add IST members. I want to show you that again, because this time I want to show you contact. And here it's the contacts. This came from Page's person record icon. Oh, and it's telling me I have to fill out required fields. They attended by phone. So more to come on that. This form is fully completed now, because I can see that my completion requirements have been met. So I am going to complete this form. And my reason, I'm going to say permanent placement. Now, the form is completed. I can still add follow-ups to this. I have to identify the type, how I did it. And again, I can make multiple selections here. Can this IST be closed? I'm going to say no and save. Time has gone by. Notice within my completion, within my status, I have the reason for the completion. If there were comments, they would display there. My other action is inactivate. Well, I'm not ready to do that yet. I have yet another follow-up. I want you to see that you're not restricted to just one. And I'm just going to fill this in. So here's my alert. Please be sure to inactivate this IST. So I click save, and Evergreen's reminding me I have to come up here to the status. And I have my reasons, as I said. I'm going to scroll down to see the inactivate button, because remember, that status button is where you move things to workflow statuses, even if it's inactivate. And I say continue. This is now inactive. I no longer have a follow-up option. Okay. All right, we've gone through a couple forms. I know that you just recently had a break, but I'm going to give you another break. Let me see. I'm going to give you a 10-minute break right now. And so we're going to come back in 10 minutes, synchronize your watches. Reset that. I will see you back in 10 minutes. We are going to pick up with the crisis prevention plan at that point. So get up, stretch, go get some more coffee or beverage, bio break, whatever you'd like. See you in just a bit. Hey, I just want to remind you about the Q&A, and that's available to send questions to Leslie. Because she needs some questions. She's ready and waiting for them. Now, I am also a big believer that nothing bad happens in training. Everything's a good learning opportunity. And one came out of the IST forms. So actually, a couple did. So I mentioned to you that there was a reason everybody showed up on the IST list. I didn't know what it was. We took a break, and that break, I got up from my desk, I went in, filled up my beverage, came back and sat down. Well, while I was filling it up, I had the thought, oh my gosh, there's a permission in the system that gives access to IS team access. That's correct, isn't it, Leslie?
I don't know. That's probably true, Lisa. I'm not the access expert.
Okay, I am. Trust me, it's true. And so, anyway, so everyone within this training environment setup, everyone has the same access, and we gave you as much access as we possibly could. So everyone has that access as an IST team member. Therefore, all of the staff members showed up. In the future, that won't happen because access is going to be more limited to people. Now, the other thing on the person record, I want to come down here to contacts. And I'm just scrolling. Let me open up this toggle so I can come right down here to contacts on this right menu. And I'm going to open up this contact. This is Jules Carr. She is the daughter. Also, I want to point out to you, when it comes to contacts, child is here. Should you ever need to add one, child is not the same as daughter or son. And what I mean by that is I am my mother's child. I am also her daughter. As her daughter, I'm an adult. I can do things for her. As a younger child, I could not. So that's the distinction there. But here is a list of all of the different roles somebody has. So Leslie, my question for you, does one of these selections identify someone as the IST, as an IST team member for the person?
I don't know about that. Sorry, Lisa, I'm not super helpful for you today. Let me see if I can tell from the functional requirement document. It should be any assigned staff member. Well, did you choose staff member or contact, or did it give you the choice when you?
Well, first I chose staff member, then I chose contact.
Yeah.
And
So
within
if you chose staff member, it should have given you active staff members with crisis team leader, crisis intake role, crisis caseworker role, ETH provider, state case manager, community case manager, BI care coordinator, or ORC care coordinator. If you chose contact, it should pre-populate with all of the contacts from the person's profile, first and last name,
okay,
the pick list. So
good
yeah,
to know.
yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so part of the reason I raised this, I wanted you to understand why all of the staff members showed. And it's because we gave everybody access to everything. That will not happen when you go live. The other thing, you all are learning a new system. Some of your staff, if you're a supervisor, they're learning a new system. If you get stuck, I want you to mentally step back, take a deep breath, let it out, read your screen. Okay, answers will come to you. The other thing that you might want to do is get up, go get a drink of water, go walk down the hall, because it has been shown that by changing one's environment, it does something within the brain and loosens up the thought process. So if you get stuck, don't panic. You're going to read your screen. You're going to find the answer, because there's a lot of consistency you will have seen in the system. Okay, I want to come back here now. We're moving into the crisis prevention plan. And you're going to see that this form displays information from other forms and sections of the system. Again, this is going to eliminate the need for you to go and search for existing information and re-enter it. Evergreen is all about making your life, your work life, easier. So this form is informative. It's a helpful planning tool for persons, families, and providers. So it's going to help identify early detection of an effective intervention during an emergency. Let's face it, we all want things to be effective for the person. So it's completed when a recommendation is provided. Notification is triggered for this from the IST crisis housing assessment or the crisis review form. You've seen the IST now, you've seen the crisis housing assessment. You will see the post-crisis review form. So any of those forms will trigger a notification to let you know this form is needed. Now, just like some of the other forms, it may be identified during the comp assessment and person-centered planning process that this form is needed. So there's multiple ways to identify the need. Well, when it comes to this form, again, it starts the same way as every other form. There's several sections to fill out. The view change history identifies all the changes that have been made to the form. And then the export change history is going to allow you to export the information to Excel. So that way you can save it, you can rearrange it or organize it, slice and dice it the way you would like. Okay, so we are on the crisis prevention plan. Let me show you that in the system. In this instance, I'm going to come back here to the forms icon on that lower left menu. And here's the list. The last form we did was the individual support team, which is inactive. I'm going to click on add new form in the upper left corner. My form category, I'm going to give crisis services a try again. And let me scroll down. There it is, the crisis prevention plan. I'm going to click next and then save to say I do want to do this form. Here is that view history. So these are different things that have happened. There's the export change history, which can be done. When I click that, I have to save this to a certain information. I'm going to date this so I know what it's for. I have to save it, and then I'm in Chrome, which is recommended for Evergreen. And I'm going to click this little icon. It's a down pointing arrow. It's my list of downloads, and then I click on the Excel spreadsheet. It showed up on a different screen, and this shows you what that is. So I have my status. Now in this instance, it's submit, meaning this form is going to go on after I'm completed it. I have my completion requirements. I have my expand all button and my toggle. Again, just starting up at the top. This is basic information for you. I'm clicking here. There's nothing I can edit or change. Here's my crisis plan. And again, I'm clicking. I can't make any changes here. All of this information came from the person record, or they created Evergreen knows that it's today, so it populated that. The phone number, date of birth, all of this came from the person record. The person ID, as a reminder, was assigned by Evergreen. So now I go down to a brief narrative. Now, if there was some safety and security history, it would have been input in this history icon on the left navigation menu, and it would show up here. Well, health and wellness, there was some history input, so it's in the history icon and populates into the crisis plan. There's reportable events, category count, so there's information here. And I have a button. I can open the reportable events list page, and this takes me to the reportable event page for page car. And here I could click to open up this reportable event if I wanted to. When I clicked the back button, it brought me back to this crisis prevention plan. I'm going to open my toggle again. The brief narrative, I'm scrolling down, the diagnosis is there, and there wasn't any additional information to populate this. But I do have my pencil icon, so I can click to open this up, and I could complete all of this information. It's not required, so I'm going to skip it today. You will not. Stage of behavior. Okay, Leslie, I'm going to ask you to hold off again because I think you might be inclined to tell me something. But hold off. So, stage of behavior. Lower left corner, I have this add stage of behavior button. I have a category here. I'm just going to randomly select one. Crisis. Again, I have My fields that require an asterisk, they have to be completed to save this information. They are also required by the form, which is why they have the exclamation mark. I have here my ghost text, which is giving me guidance on what's needed. Well, the minute I start to type, I lose my ghost text. So that's where this little light bulb tells me what was in the ghost text. So I have it in two places. And I'm just going to fill this in. And I'm going to click save on this. And I'm actually going to add one more stage in behavior. Now notice when I moved my cursor up, I have my little pencil icon so I could edit if I needed to. I could also delete. I am going to just do a baseline behavior. And click save. I'm going to come down here to supports. And again, I'm going to click to engage this. I'm going to provide the on-call details. The guardians. The guardian was listed in the records icon under contact. So that's where this information came from. And then the crisis phone number is automatically populated here. This may not be the correct phone number in the training environment. If that's the case, the correct number will be in your production environment upon go live. And I'm going to save this. Okay, there's no other sections for the form. I have my form completely filled out. So I'm going to come up here to the status button again. And when I click on it, I am going to click submit. It's going to ask me if I'm sure, because once I submit, I can't make changes. I'm going to say continue. This is what I wanted you to see. I have an error message. It tells me at least one from each category should be entered to complete this form. So I'm going to click cancel because I can't do my submit. Well, I'm going to come over here to stage of behavior. Here's where I have a category for crisis. I have another baseline behavior. Well, that error was telling me that I needed a behavior. I needed to address all of these categories. So again, this is one of those guardrails to make sure that nobody is going to miss anything. All right, I'm going to try my submit again. Okay, so I had all of my behaviors in there. And now this is pending acknowledgement. Okay, so the acknowledgement comes from the case manager. Well, the case manager, guess how they find out this is waiting for them? You're right, they received a notification. So the case manager is going to access the form. They're going to click on the stat. Well, of course, they're going to look at the form first off, make sure everything looks good. They're aware of what's in it. When they're done with that, they'll come up here to the status and they're going to click acknowledge. And here is where they're going to save their acknowledgement, and They are acknowledging receipt and review of this crisis plan. So I clicked save on this. And now notice there is additional information here. Leslie, I am going to invite you to add any comments you might want to, or anything I might have missed on this form.
I have to admit, I was multitasking, Lisa, because I was trying to figure out the IST situation. So I wasn't paying attention, but I'm sure you did a beautiful job of talking through the crisis prevention plan.
That's quite all right. And, you know, that's one of those things that happens in training, and that's cool. Because I did identify this other item. But this is how the form works.
We're correct. It was a permission thing, Lisa. I'm just trying to work through that and make sure that that's true.
And you have your Q&A if there's things outside of the technology that you have questions on. Go ahead and submit that question. Now, we are going to move into a new form. This is the safety device approval packet. You're going to walk away saying, Lisa is so strange, and that's okay. I can take it. I love doing these packet forms for whatever reason. I find them fun. So the packet basically bundles forms and attachments for you. And this packet is completed if recommended in the crisis housing assessment or the post-crisis review forms. And when the need is identified, a notification is triggered so that staff know there's the need. It's possible also, that the need is identified during the comprehensive assessment and person-centered plan. So in these instances, there's always multiple ways in which the need may be identified. Now, the forms in here are forms that are completed outside the system. Specifically, you can see here under completion requirements, there's 2 attachments that are required: the Safety Protective Device Request Form and the Safety Protective Device Approval Form. These are completed outside of Evergreen and then attached to this packet. Now, the PCP has to be in the status of plan completed for this to be done. And this is going to populate to the PCP, subsequent PCPs, okay? So it does require the crisis committee approval. And a cool thing on this, you can request a clarification if you need one, okay? So this is not an approve or decline. This is a, ooh, I can approve. I may have questions, or then decline. I'll show you that in just a moment, okay? And of course, there are notifications associated with this. So let me show you what this form looks like. Now, in this instance, I am going to use the back button. I'm in my crisis prevention plan. I'm using the back button. This returned me to the forms list. So there are multiple ways that we can add a form. One is, if we're in a form, click that back button. The other is click on the forms icon. Flexibility is the name of the game with the system. I'm going to click Add New Form. I need to choose the category. And I'm going to try Crisis Services. Okay, and it's not here. So I'm going to go back to Case and Care Plans and Forms. And when I scroll down on this, there it is at the bottom, the Safety Device Approval Packet. So again, If you don't find a form in one place, check another. And click next. And then I'm going to save saying, yes, I want to do this. Now, let me do that again so you can see the message. This is telling me that I cannot create a new one when one already exists in an in-progress status or a pending committee review status. Okay, I created a form last night and I put it into the pending committee review status, I think. I'll check that. You can only have one form in progress or pending committee review at a time. You can't have multiple ones because that confuses Evergreen. It doesn't know which one is the valid one. So it's going to limit you to one at a time. So I'm going to look at my list here, and I have down at the bottom, you can see I have 15 forms per page. In this upper right corner, I'm going to see if I can find this by doing a search for the form. So I just typed in safety. It took me directly to the form. So I'm going to click on it to enter it. So here you can see there's a space for attachments here. There's the pending committee review status, the completion requirements, and the completion requirements. I love this. Evergreen told me what attachments were required. I have my expand all button, and when I click the toggle, it opens up my categories. So I'm going to click on person-centered plan. It tells me about the date and the PCP meeting narrative. I'm going to come down here to review team actions. And here I can see the fields for the approval. Up here, I want to show you there's the attachments. When I click on this icon, here are the two attachments, and I can click to open these. And here it shows me the form, details about the form. Now, if I wanted to view the form itself, I could download it. Okay, so I clicked on the ellipsis, and then I'd click on download. Okay. The edit, I want to show you. This is just editing this information about the attachment. It is not editing the actual attachment. If by chance I needed to add a new attachment, I have the add new attachment button. When I click on that, I need to choose the file from my file picker. So it has to be somewhere available in your computer. I'm going to locate my attachment, click open, and it's going to add it. I would then select the category and input the description. So my status here, I need to identify, am I going to approve this? Do I have questions about it? Because remember, I looked at those attachments. Am I going to deny the request, or am I going to close this saying this is not needed? Well, if I request clarification, I'm going to have here a place where I'm going to identify the clarification that I need. And I'll click continue. I don't want to do that because I don't want to send a clarification. Well, when I do that, the case manager is going to get a notification to say, hey, the safety device approval packet, some clarification is needed. Case manager will click on that notification, They'll open it up. They'll see what you need a clarification on. They will make the change. They will resubmit it, and you'll go through this process again. So I am going to go ahead and I am going to approve this, and the date defaults. I can, of course, change this, and I'm just going to save it. I can add a comment, and I've approved the form. Now then, up until this point in the person record, the history. Let me try that again. In the health information icon, when I click on that, I have all these tabs. One is for devices and modifications. Well, to add a new device, I have to click upper left corner, a new device, and I can select a safety device. The system gives me a drop down of the options. And I could identify that and save this. What's important to realize, notice who added that. I, as the crisis staff 1, remember that's my name today. This safety device cannot be added until this safety device approval packet has been approved. Okay, so Evergreen is going to make sure that packet is approved before the device can be added. So now we want to move to the behavior management plan, the BMP. Now, this form is started by the case manager or care coordinator, and it's documented in the person-centered plan. Okay. Now, they're going to submit the form by updating the status to pending committee review. You're going to get a notification to know the form is available and ready for your review. So, guess what you're going to do? You're going to open it up and you're going to take a look at this. Okay. Now, different users complete different sections of this form, just so you're aware of that. And Evergreen is going to help you out with this, because if it's not a section you should be completing, you will not be able to. Okay. Today you can, in training you would be able to, but upon go live you would not be able to. But as each section gets completed and there's a handoff, there is a fabulous notification that occurs. Now, on this form, when there is the committee review decision, here you have multiple selections. You can approve it, you can do a conditional approval, or you can deny it. If you decide to do a conditional approval, which is what we have in this screenshot, you have to input the reason for that, provide the details. Now, to remove that conditional approval, the case manager is going to need to resubmit this form, or resubmit a BMP form. Now, again, when you're updating the status, you've made your approval, you have to change the status. Approval's not enough. You can close this saying you don't need the form, void stamp. You can request a clarification again. And guess what? Just like with the previous form we saw, if a clarification is needed, you're going to identify what that is. The case manager gets a notification. They're going to open up this form. It's going to be in progress. They're going to do what they need to do. They will resubmit it. Again, you'll get a notification that it's available and ready for your review. And that's the request clarification. Complete means the review was conducted, the decision status review committee decision section has been completed. So let me show you this form. I'm going to come down here to my forms icon. Again, upper left corner, adding a new form. I'm going to try case and care management forms. Here it is, right at the very top. So my category was case, care, plans, and forms, and the form was then the BMP. I'm going to click next, and now I'm going to save it. Here's one I already got started because it's started by the case manager. So I searched and opened it up. This form status is now ready for committee review. I have my completion requirements that show everything is done except the review committee decision. I'm going to review this form. I can either open up each section and review it one by one, or some people like to expand all and they like to see one long form because they want to see it all together. And then, of course, there's the toggle. Signatures, I want to show you this because a cool thing about Evergreen is that it does allow for electronic signatures. Certainly paper signatures can be collected, and there's instances if a signature cannot be collected, that's a selection in here, and you have your processes and procedures. But the electronic signatures are here. I love that. So I'm going to come down here to the review committee decision, and I have my pointer finger and my pencil, and I'm opening this up. I'm meeting date. I'm just inputting today. And I want to show you the conditional approval. I can add a note. I have the meeting date, which I had already input, and I can change. The status decision, the conditional approval is there, but I can change this if I wanted to. I'm going to input my conditional approval details. The date automatically defaulted to 1 year from today. Evergreen already did that for you. Okay. It can be changed. However, the default is 1 day or 1 year, excuse me. And I'm going to just click save. Now this form, I also have attachments here that I would have looked at. And again, with the ellipsis, I download those to take a look at it. View, or I can click view to look at it. You cannot edit these forms. If I click edit, it is allowing me just to edit the details about the form. And I'm going to click close. I have done my review. And so now I'm going to say complete. And I'm going to click continue. So the status of this form is completed. There can't be any other statuses added. This form is done. Okay, we're going to go into the temporary housing form. Or excuse me, yeah, let me try that again. The crisis temporary housing form. So this form has to be created or completed based on the crisis housing agreement and the crisis intake forms. If you happen to forget, cool thing, Evergreen is going to remind you. It's one of the guardrails in the system. Okay, so you have to have this in order to be able to create the crisis housing agreement, the crisis home intake. And Evergreen reminds you. And the form is based on the recommendations in the crisis housing assessment, the post-crisis review, and the IST forms. I don't know if you've noticed, but within the forms that identify or recommend completion of this form, there's been a lot of consistency. The crisis housing assessment, the post-crisis review, and in this instance, the IST form. And of course, you get a notification. So the crisis worker is going to start the form. They're going to complete it. They're going to complete step 1, and they're going to update the status to pending assignment. A notification goes. And step 2 is populated by the crisis special projects role. And they're going to determine if a crisis house or an emergency transitional house bed is to be used. Notifications throughout the way. You don't have to remember. Okay. Now then, let's take a look at this. When step 2 is done, then it's time for step 3. And this is filled out by the crisis worker if the person is going to a crisis bed. If ETH, transitional housing bed is selected, the provider selected receives the notification and they complete step 3. So Evergreen is automatically routing the form to where it needs to go. And then lastly, we have the follow-ups, and these are added once the form has been completed. So let me show you this in the system. I'm going to click the back button to go to my forms list. And I'm doing the crisis temporary housing. Okay, it looks like I don't have one. Just double checking here. Okay, so I'm going to come up here. Upper left, add a new form. My category is going to be crisis services. My form is going to be the crisis temporary housing. And I'm going to click next. And then I'm going to click save because yes, I want to do this form. Notice only one section of this form is available, or only step 1 of the form is available. This is completed by the crisis worker. We have our statuses, close, again, void, the red stamp. I know you're probably tired of hearing me say that, and I do that to reinforce it, because close now does not work like Word documents or Excel documents, Microsoft things. Once you close it, you cannot reopen it and act on it. You can view it, but you can't act on it. And then submit sends it on to the next step. We have the completion requirements here, expand all, and then the toggle. Notice all of our forms have looked the same at the top. I'm going to click to open this up. Click to engage it. The date, I'm just going to select today. The reason for the admission is identified, the presenting concern. And so I just added my comments. Look, it's done. And there's nothing else to complete here. So I'm ready to send this on. I'm ready to submit this. So I went to the status drop down, click submit. Am I sure? Yes, I am. So I'm going to continue this action. A notification has gone out so that when that notification is received, that staff member is going to click on it, open up this form, take a look at step 1, then open up step 2. And there's the pointer finger and the pencil icon. So I'm going to click to open that up. And here's my selections: ETH or crisis residential beds. I'm just going to do crisis residential beds, and I have to select the location. Possible selections or locations are based and come from Evergreen. And the organization defaults, and I'm going to say save. Now I want to show you, if I select ETH, it's telling me this location is wrong. Actually, I'm going to cancel this. I have to, I do have a location I can add. And I can click save. Okay, that's all done. Completion requirements have been met. So I'm ready to once again submit this. And remember, now the form is going on for either the case manager or the provider to complete step 3. And yes, they get a notification. So I clicked on that to open it up. I'm going to click to engage this. I identify, was the functional assessment developed? Was the positive support plan developed? I'm going to input the discharge date, who they're discharged to. I'm just going to make a random selection. And I'm going to click save. Okay, completion requirements have all been met. Oops. So now I'm ready to update this form. I'm ready to say it is totally completed. Am I sure? And I'm going to say yes. Well, the form is completed. I can't edit any of these other sections in it, but I do have a new section for follow-ups. And I have in the lower left corner the add follow-up button. I have my selection of what follow-up is occurring. And again, for any required follow-up, Evergreen's going to send you a notification to remind you. I identify how the follow-up occurred and who I contacted, and then save the information. And I can add additional follow-ups as they are needed. Okay. I'm going to go through this crisis workflow. It's got 3 forms in it. I'm going to go through this, then I will give you another break, okay? So the crisis workflow. This has, like I said, 3 forms. We're going to talk about the crisis housing agreement, crisis home intake. This is different than the crisis intake we did at the beginning, and the crisis bed intake packet. So here, I'm going to start with the crisis housing agreement. And you know this as the house admission assessment in EIS, okay? So house admission, this is the crisis housing agreement. And it's the agreement between the person and the housing provider on the type of skills and behaviors that the person's going to work on while they are in that housing. This has to the crisis temporary housing agreement must be completed prior to starting this form. And guess what? Evergreen, if you try to start this before that form is completed, it is going to remind you that the form is needed. It won't let you do this if that requirement hasn't been met. Now, on this form, you'll also get to see how signatures are captured. You'll get to see how cool that is. Now, form number 2, the crisis home intake form is your current crisis bed intake form and your crisis prevention and intervention services form in EIS. Excuse me. These two forms have been combined into one form. And this form is used only if someone is going to a state crisis bed. It's a checklist of admission details for intake to the crisis home. I'm sorry, I got something in my throat. There are 5 different sections of this form, and we're going to go through each of these so that you can see how each section works and where information comes from. Lastly, we have the crisis bed intake packet. Now, the packets, remember, they bundle forms together, so it contains multiple items. And it's a collection of the crisis home intake and the crisis housing agreement forms. So it's putting these together into one nifty form, and those forms have to be completed and active to be able to be linked. Remember, completed means they're done. Active means that they are the most current form and they're currently in progress or being used. Now, rather than multiple clicks, let me try that one again, multiple clicks to open up each individual form, you can open them from this packet. So that's pretty cool. It's convenience. And here is the packet. You can see there's the crisis form, crisis home intake form. And I want to show you that on this screenshot, it has been completed. And you can't tell, but here, it's been started, but here it's been completed, okay? Excuse me, let me try that again. Here's the crisis home intake form. Here, I'm in the crisis bed intake packet. Here, you can see the crisis home intake has been added. It's been linked to it. Attachments are required. So again, you have a list of attachments, and when you go to add the attachments, this is going to give you the options of what you might attach. So Evergreen is going to tell you. And once they're once the category is selected, you'd make your comments and then save this. So let me show you what this one looks like in the system. Okay, the crisis housing agreement. I'm going to come back here to my forms. I have my crisis housing assessment. Remember early on when I got the two confused? I have the assessment. Now I'm doing the agreement. So new form, crisis services, and now I'm doing the crisis housing agreement. I select next, I'm going to select save. This opens up the form. Again, it's in progress, the completion requirements. Notice this one, signatures are a completion requirement. Pretty cool. I have then my expand all and my toggle. Again, I'm starting at the top. You can navigate around in different areas. So I have my pencil icon. I'm going to click to open this up. The name, date of birth came from the system, the person record icon. The date, Evergreen knows the date. It's been based on today. So I'm going to click save. This section is done. Yep. Completion requirements tell me it's done. I'm going to go to the next section. Again, I'm going to click to engage it. And here the person is going to identify what they're going to work on. Now, when you are doing your practicing, I'm going to suggest that, again, you minimize the information that you add for now, just so you can focus on the functionality, because you'll know how to answer the questions. And should you be concerned about having enough space, look, you have 10,000 characters. That's a lot of space. And click save. So this section is done. Now I'm coming down to my signatures. And my completion requirements tell me when I click on the plus button to the left of signatures that I need the person or guardian signature and the crisis worker. So up at the top, I'm in the signature section, relationship to person. This is telling me this is for the person's signature. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to check the box that the signature's been affirmed and has been verified. Signature type, I have the choice of an e-signature or a written signature. I'm going to select the e-signature. And when I do that, I have this nice big open space. And this is where the mouse is used for the person to sign. If they need to clear it and re-sign, that can be done. Down here, I need to type in the person's name. The date signed, system knows it's today, and I'm going to save this. I can retract this signature if I wanted to. I'm not going to do that today. Now it's time for a guardian signature. And I'm going to click on this. I'm going to, again, affirm the signature's been verified. This time, I'm going to show you written signature because I want you to see what it's like, looks like. When I selected that, I then have this field for the signature, and I have to choose the file. So when I click on choose file, it's going to open up the file picker. I'm going to locate the document with the signature on it. And I'm going to click on it to highlight it and then click open. And it's going to show. Now the signature file, the name will show the actual file name, of course. And I'm going to input the guardian's name. And I'm going to do the date. I'm signing it today and click save. Okay. Now then, the signature is saved here in the form. It cannot be located in the attachments icon. Okay. It's only available in this form, which is why you have the download signature button here. And lastly, it's time for the caseworker signature. So again, I clicked, going to affirm. The relationship to the person defaulted to caseworker, but I can change this. I can do the signature type. I like the e-signature, so that's what I'm doing. And my name, and I'm going to save this. Okay. So my completion requirements have all been met, and I am going to now complete this form. Say, yes, I want to complete it. And the status has been updated, so I cannot make any changes to it. Okay, I also need to do the crisis home intake form. This one, you've seen me do so many forms, so I'm going to go through it a little faster. I selected the category and the form type. I'm going to say, yes, I want to complete this. Again, there's my status and completion requirements. I'm going to start at the top of the form. There's information that comes from the person record. There's health information that again comes from the person record. You don't have to look it up. You don't have to retype it. The relationship and contacts are here. So, primary care physician. There isn't a record available, so I can click Add Primary Care Physician. There isn't one in the record. The medical manager. When I click the add, again, there's not one in there. I'm going to very quickly come up to the person record icon because I'm going to add a contact. So I open that icon. From that right toggle, I'm clicking on contacts. In this section at the lower left, I'm going to add the contact. He is the professional medical. I'm going to say James is the primary care. And I don't have any other fields required for him. I'm going to come back down here to my form. The last one I was in is the crisis home intake. I'm coming back to relationships and contacts. When I again, lower left, clicked on that add primary care physician, I now have in the drop down James' name. So if that information is captured, you don't need to recapture it. The doctor is there, or the physician, and I'm going to save that. And medical manager, I would select them the same way. The guardian is already in the system, so that defaulted from the person record icon contacts. It's the same for the emergency contact. I could add additional contacts, or I can add no contact. And then the case manager information defaults. There's the admission checklist. I'm just choosing to date. And I'm doing all of this. I know by now you can read, you can figure out how to fill out these forms, but I need this so I can show you the packet. And notes, nothing required there. I've met the completion requirements. So now I'm going to update the status to complete. I'm going to say continue. And this one is done. So one more form, and then I'm going to give you a break. So I'm going to click my back button for my list of forms. I'm going to do add new form. Sorry, I got a pop-up that confused me for a moment. I'm going to do the crisis services. My new form is the crisis bed intake packet. And next, and click save. Okay, here's the space for attachments, our status, our completion requirements. And here we have the forms checklist. We also have attachments. The forms, it's telling me the 2 forms that are needed. The attachments, it's showing me all of these. And I showed you those. There's my toggle. The crisis bed intake packet, this defaults, again, to what it is in today's date, the date it's created. Now I've clicked to engage the forms checklist. Here, it lists the form that's needed, but on these other fields, it doesn't have any information. That's because the form has not been attached. If I click on this, nothing happens. Here's where you're going to take that breath, look at the form and say, I have an ellipsis. I'm going to click on that and then click on the link button. I have to tell Evergreen I want to add a form. Up here, you have a message that links the form where it has active yes. Well, I don't see a yes. I have this little table icon at the top of my list of forms. I clicked on that. I'm going to select column select and active. Click on it again. And now I can see that active status. And now then, I haven't yet linked it. I've just identified the form to link. So I'm going to click on this, and I notice there's only the cancel button. When I click on this, that's when I get the link button. Because at some point, there might be multiple forms. So you have to tell Evergreen which form you want to link. So I click on link, and it is now here. You can see that. I need to do the crisis housing agreement. So again, over here to the ellipsis, I click on that and I click on link. I only have one form. Again, if I want to see the status, the zoom on my browser is up very high. So that's why you don't see things automatically on my screen. I went to the little table icon, column select, and I clicked on active so I could see that. I'm clicking on the table icon again to close that. So now I can see it. Again, there's no link button. So I'm going to click to tell Evergreen this is the form I want to link, and I'll get the link button. Now then, if there's multiple forms listed and you click on something that cannot be linked, you will not get this button. And again, it's not a matter that the system doesn't work. It's a matter that the right form, the form that is active, has not been selected. And I'm going to click link. Okay, so completion requirements, my forms are both linked here. So attachments, I have a number of them I have to attach here, belongings and crisis prevention. So I clicked on attachments, add new attachment in that upper left, choosing file, and I'm locating my form and clicking open. and I am identifying the form. I know I have another attachment to do. And I'm just going to keep adding these. I'm going to close this for now because I want to see where I am in my completion requirements. Okay, so I have 3 of them done. I need to just do 2 more attachments. So again, clicked on attachments, upper left, add new attachments. All of your action buttons are up there. I clicked choose file, attachment, opened it up, selected the category. Now on this end date does not do anything in the system, okay? So you can input it here, but the form is still going to be available for viewing. It's for informational purposes to let you know that the end date on the form has been reached, but it doesn't do anything in the system. You'll still be able to open it up, view it, download it, etc. I'm going to save this. And I have one more, add new attachment. Click choose file. And I'm opening that. I need to choose the category. And I'm going to click save on there. I'm going to close this up. I'm going to check my completion requirements. Okay, and they are all there. So I'm ready to complete this. I will just say these forms are new to you. Completing them is going to be a little bit different. Okay, so if you need a reminder of these videos are going to be available for you. The easiest way to target a particular form is to look for that green form header that we had at the beginning. The other thing is it's 11:02 right now. If you're taking notes, for me, I tend to write down the time, so that gives me a sense of how far I have to go in the recording. I'm going to update. I have my completion, my status to complete, and I'm going to click continue. And this is completed. Now I can look at things, but I can't do anything with them. And here on the forms checklist, if I click on the crisis housing agreement, it has opened it up for me. So I can see what's here. I click back to go to my packet. I can come back here to the crisis forms checklist. I can click on the intake, crisis home intake, take a look at that. And attachments, they are all here, so I can open these up as well. Okay, so I want to give you another break. I'm going to give you 10 minutes here because I know this has been a long stretch for you. So I appreciate you hanging in there with me. And I'm going to go ahead and give you 10 minutes this time. When you come back, oops, sorry about that. When you come back, we have the post-crisis review form to do, and then reportable events. You're not going to be done yet, though, because there's still some other things that I need to go over with you. But I do want you to be aware that we've gone through just about all of those forms. So you've learned a whole lot about those. So again, let's do a 10-minute break. Oops. And I will see you back here in 10 minutes. Leslie, before you go,
Yeah.
just so you know, I'm going to invite you to add any comments when we get back.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. Okay, welcome back. Before we move to the post-crisis review form, Leslie, I wanted to check in and see if there's anything that you wanted to share with folks.
I don't have a lot right now, Lisa. Obviously, I'll share some thoughts at the end of training, but I will throw out there right now for Holly and others that are on the call. There are other relevant training sessions available for our crisis staff as well. So again, Lisa's doing a great job of, guiding you through the technical side of the system and how to navigate and find all these forms. But we will have that business process kind of deeper dive training on some of these forms in January as well. So if you haven't already registered for the January training session, I would encourage to do that as well. And as Lisa said before we went on break, this training session, as well as the second offering of this training session, they're both being recorded and they will be posted on our website as well. So you can play them back as many times as you need to. So, between now and go live, you can be replaying those. And even after we go live, if you need to refer back on a refresher of how to find something or do something, these will be available for you.
Thank you. And I mentioned earlier the form header section. I don't know what I called it. Basically, if you're looking at the recording and want to focus on a certain form, you can scroll through the recording and look for the form title. Rather than watching the whole thing, we have these nice big green slides that show you what form is being talked about to help you easily navigate and locate forms and information. So the post-crisis review form. This is a form you use relatively frequently. It's following the initiation of services. The crisis worker meets with the person to review the status of those services. And from this, recommendations are based on the person's needs. And of course, if needed, follow-ups are completed. You could see two sections of the form. This third section, which you can't see here, but you'll see in just a moment, is a crisis bed / ETH recommendation follow-up. And it's only available after these two sections are filled in and the form status is updated to completed. Okay, so I'm not going to demonstrate this form, but if you open it up and you see only two sections and you're like, wait a minute, this has more today. How come Evergreen only has this limited information? It has the limited information because you have to add and complete these two sections before you receive that third section. Okay, so just be aware of that, and it'll seem pretty seamless to you. All right, I want to switch gears now and move to reportable events. And these are something that you regularly complete now. And they are now going to be in Evergreen. There's a few new questions, and some of the sections have been rearranged. However, it basically collects a lot of the same information. And the reportable event form logs the information related to an incident, the care that's required, the witnesses, the way related protection and advocacy as needed, and just a whole lot of information. It's comprehensive for reportable events, for incidents. Now then, in this screen print, you'll notice that when in the reportable event form, there are two tabs. One is the reportable event, the other is the provider follow-up. This is keeping all of the information in one place to make it easy for you. Now then, there's notifications associated with reportable events. I'm sure that surprises you. So notifications are sent to the assigned case manager or care coordinator, the crisis staff, and QA when these forms are completed. Okay, it's been completed, you all get a notification. There's also circumstances in which the case manager and care coordinator are going to get a notification. And that's if there are 3 or more RE forms within 14 calendar days where the incident category is emergency restraint. Now, they also get a notification if there are 6 or more RE forms completed within a 365 calendar days, where again, that same category is emergency restraint. So you all, the case manager, case coordinator, nobody needs to worry about tracking that. The system is going to do that. And as you know, an IST meeting is required if the above occurs. So let me show you reportable events. So reportable events are a form. So I'm in Pages Record. I'm going upper left, add new form. It has its own category, incident reporting. And I only have 2 choices, death and mortality or reportable event. I'm going for reportable event. I'm being asked, do I want to complete this? And I say yes. And here, as I mentioned, there's the 2 tabs, the reportable event and the provider follow-up. There's a place for attachments if they're needed, the status, our completion requirements, our expand all, and our toggle. And again, you can jump around in these, and you'll do so as you get more and more familiar with the system. For starting, I'm going to start at the top since we're just learning. So the overview is filled in based on information in the system. And you can see the report ID. This is the 6th reportable event in the training environment. You can see the staff member, I'm signed in as crisis.01. And then we have the date. I want to move to the incident. Again, I have my pointer finger, and when I scroll down, there's my pencil icon. So I'm going to click to open this up. And again, I'm focusing on required fields. So the discovery date is actually, I want to put the discovery date as yesterday. The incident start date, I'll put that as yesterday. The start time, I do want to point out, if this is approximate, you can identify this because you do have to put in an incident start time. You do have to identify if it's AM or PM. The frequency of occurrence, I'm just going to say it's the first time. I have my ghost text to tell me what description of incident details might be. The immediate response. The incident location, I can identify that. Is this a waiver funded location? No. The address. That's Paige's address. Was emergency services involved? I'm going to say no. Um, yeah. Who will complete the 30-day follow-up? And I'm going to say the case manager. Okay, all my completion requirements here are done. So I'm going to click save. Well, I have an error here. I have to fill out this form or this field. I understand the 30-day provider follow-up and internal review must be completed. So I'm going to X out of this. I'm going to scroll all the way to the form and I'm going to look at this. And it says the 30-day provider follow-up and internal review must be completed. And it tells you where the requirement comes from and will notify the responsible provider. So there's that reminder for you. Here, the reporter type is available. Excuse me. And I can say it's the contact. And again, my name, the names that are in the person record icon, the contacts listed there are displayed here for me to select. And when I do that, it shows me information, the relationship and the person's role. And the reporter's involvement, I'm going to say participant. The witnesses and participants, again, for all these sections, if I have to add something, it's in the lower left corner for that particular section. I'm going to, again, make it a contact. I'm going to say Jules again. And make her a participant. Notifications now. Was the person's family notified? I'm going to say yes. Was the guardian notified? I'm going to say yes, and then I have to put the guardian name. If I say no, I have to identify why the guardian was not identified or not notified. And this is unusual in that for this, there is a first name for the guardian and a last name for the guardian. And I'm going to save. And I just keep scrolling my way down here. Incident categories. Again, I'm going to click to engage this. And I can do a search of the categories or I can scroll down. And I can make either a single selection. Once I check a box, it engages this caret. You can see that it's highlighted in green now. To move it over into the selected column, I can also turn around and identify another item if I wanted to. And move them both over. If I find out, oh, I don't need one of these, I can click on it. The caret, that arrow facing to the left, is engaged, and I can click to move that last item back to the available column, and it's no longer in the selected column. And these are the same incident categories you have as today. Leslie, I'm going to ask you a question here.
Sure.
Are there any new incident categories?
Yes. So currently in EIS, there are 16 categories. There is one additional one. It's that one second from the bottom on your available list, Lisa, the rights violation waiting for approved plan. So this is a new category that's added for Evergreen. So if somebody is awaiting an approved plan and their right is being violated every day because they're waiting for that approved plan, we've added this category to be used after the first rights violation reportable event with that category has been entered, so that the notifications aren't going to the disability rights main every single day, because currently under rule they'd have to enter a reportable event every time that person's right is being violated, and they're just getting the same report over and over and over again for the same reason. So that is the one new category. And I did cover that. I did a deeper dive on the reportable event form. There was an informational webinar, and then there was also a business process training related to the reportable event, so they can refer to those recordings as well for some additional details if needed.
Thank you. And so do scroll through these. I've had people say, well, wait a minute, I was able to select such and such before. I can't select it now. It's likely there. So again, stop, scroll, and reread. You can even try the search to locate it. So I have my selected category. I'm going to click Save. And now I'm down to incident category types. And when I click on this, notice it says lost or missing person. Well, that's the incident category I had selected. So I click to engage this. And here I'm just going to answer the questions. And I'm doing very random selections. And I'm going to save this information. Going to check my completion requirements. It's been totally completed. I know that I'm not going to be making any changes to this information. So I can update the status to complete. And I'm going to say, yes, I'm sure, by clicking continue. Now then, there are follow-ups that are required for reportable events. And that's where the provider follow-up tab happens. Okay. And the reportable event is accessed. The reportable event, provider follow-up tab clicked. Right now, there isn't anything here. There is only this little button, add provider follow-up. So I click on that. I need to confirm I want to do it. The status defaults to in progress. You can see the completion requirements and expand all. It looks just like everything else. Follow-up details are from the form, the reportable event. The internal review, I need to say, was a review conducted? And if so, I need to identify the name of the person who completed it. Remediation steps. When I say yes, I have to add the remediation step. I have to add it. It's a required field. If I say no, then I have to identify why the step wasn't necessary. When I click add, I'm just going to fill this information in. Lots of people are involved in this. And I can add additional remediation steps by clicking this plus button. If I add an additional step, I'm going to have to complete all of the fields. So if I'm not adding an additional action, I need to remove it. And I click Save. Future remediation actions. Again, based on my selection, that is going to identify what fields are to be completed. And in this instance, I chose to say no, just so you could see what's happening. And then there's place for comments. And again, once this is completed, again, use the status dropdown to update to complete. and click continue. And so now this is completed. Leslie, I know that reportable events are very common, unfortunately. Is there anything you would like to add on reportable events before we move into next steps?
I don't think so, Lisa. Reportable event form is, like you said, a well-known form. It has not changed dramatically from the EIS form. It should be very familiar to everybody. Those that are mandated reporters know what their responsibilities are under the reportable event rules. So I think you did a great job giving them the overview that they need.
Thank you. And in the forms list, the reportable event here is here. And again, I can always do a search because at some point somebody's going to have a lot of forms.
That's actually one other good thing is they might want to use the reportable event custom list page under the filter icon, because that does give them a little bit of content. I'm glad that you said that. I didn't even think of that.
I'm glad you said that.
If they use that filter icon and they go to the reportable events form page, they get a couple of extra columns of data that might help them search and find that specific reportable event that they're looking for better. It's way down at the bottom, Lisa. Your very last one.
Okay.
Yeah. It has like the event categories and things like that don't show up on the list page on the all forms list page.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And this is actually a list of all of the forms that have been completed for this person. So I have found it very helpful to turn around and, as you say, locate reportable event forms or any other form. So this little upside down triangle. Oh, the other thing, if somebody has a lot of forms down at the bottom, you have items per page. You can update this so it up to 100 items are displayed before you have to go to the next page. So let's talk about next steps. OATH is going to be providing you with information to log into the sandbox. Practice, practice, practice. Become familiar with the system. You're going to be a little uncomfortable. You're going to have to maybe check a couple different places at times for a form. That's okay. Again, should you get a little stuck, you're going to take a breath, read your screen. The answer will come to you, I promise. Just be sure to stick with your particular person. Watch for emails that are going to be coming, and certainly watch the micro learnings. And we're recommending this a week or two before go live. Now, emails, you're watching for that anyway. They're important. They need to be read. You want to plan ahead. If there's loose ends in the system, excuse me, your current system, you want to finalize and finish anything that's in progress that you can, because you have to have them completed before 5 p.m. on Friday, January 12th. Okay, because you're not going to be able to access your current system after that time. There's also Q&A session. So you have the micro learnings, you can play in the sandbox. The Q&A sessions are going to happen before deployment. They're in January, so keep your ears and eyes open for those. There's recordings available and FAQs, the project website, and then places you can email questions. And Jack has put these in the webinar chat. Click that chat icon. Now, while you're doing that, the very first link she gave, or excuse me, the second link she gave you is to a survey. Please click on that. Please take a couple moments to complete the survey. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you wish would be done a little differently. We welcome your feedback. We look at these. It helps us improve our training. I do ask that when you're looking at this, you do look carefully at the strongly agree versus strongly disagree, because sometimes people don't read the whole thing and they choose the wrong one. So please make sure you're selecting the correct item on the scale. And this is only a few questions. So while you complete that, Leslie, I want to invite you to share any final comments.
Yes, thank you. First, I want to say thank you to Holly and others who have joined this training session. As we've said a couple of times throughout this, this is your technical training on how to navigate the system. I did mention partway through here, there is the business process training session. That one's going to be held on January 2nd at 8 a.m. So strongly encourage you to also sign up for that one. We'll take a little bit deeper dive. As Lisa mentioned, we will be sharing out access to that training sandbox environment. And I do want to reiterate her comments on how important it will be for you to go in there and test things out for yourself, play around, familiarize yourself with the system. So we're planning on sending those emails out on Friday. We do have 2,700 users that we need to send those emails out to. So it will take a little bit of time, but we'll start sending those on Friday, hopefully be able to get them all out by Monday at the latest. And they will have your URL that you need to access that environment. They'll have your login. As Lisa mentioned earlier, that login will have additional functionality than your production user role will have. That's again to make it easier for you to navigate in that environment. And will also be a shared login. So please do not reset the password on that. I know Lisa said that earlier, but I want to reiterate that again as well, because you will lock out everybody that's been given that account to. So it will be dozens, maybe hundreds of people that you're locking out of that environment. So please don't reset the password. If you're struggling to log in, reach out to us. We'll try to help you through that. And you will be assigned your own person record for that system. And that person record is for you to do what you'd like with. So you can add things to that record, edit things. You can, on the person record itself, on the in the forms area, in the progress notes area, you can run the reports that are out there, whatever's out there, test it, try it, see what happens, try it again. I know I'm stressing this a lot, but I really want to underscore how helpful that will be to you going into the deploy if you've been in there and you've been able to try it out yourself first. To Lisa's other point around tying up loose ends, definitely progress notes. If you have progress notes out there that are not in a final state, you're going to want to wrap those up before 5 o'clock on January 12th, 2024. Also, reportable events, if you have any that haven't been completed, you've started them but they haven't been completed, you're going to want to complete those as well, and death and mortality forms. But everything else I think will migrate in its in progress state. So really just focus on your progress notes, reportable events, death and mortality forms. And at any time, even after this training, up until go live, you can always email questions to us. We are monitoring our project email box. Jack did add that to the chat for you. That's evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov. So please, if you have any questions, we would love to receive those and try to be able to respond to them for you. And as Lisa also mentioned, keep your eye out for emails from us regarding project status and things like that. We do intend to send one in early January, probably that first week of January, as a reminder that the deploy will be coming up. It will have some post-deploy support details included in there, so you can know where to go and how to get help once we do go live. We are going to have a very robust support plan for all of you, and we're just working out the final details of that now, but we will share that information in that email in early January. And I want to say thank you again for hanging with us. I know this was a long session, but Lisa had a lot to cover. She did a great job. And I really appreciate those of you that joined up and were able to listen to this session. And please encourage your colleagues to sign up for the other session. It's this exact same training. It's going to be held next week. I think on the 19th, in the afternoon at 1 o'clock, I believe.
That
So
is correct.
yeah, thank you. Yeah. So encourage your colleagues to sign up and get this training as well. I think it's going to be, the more information you have, I think the better armed you'll be for moving into the new system, and super excited to support you over there.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you all for coming. If you haven't completed the survey, please continue to do so. And I really appreciate your time and your attention today. I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everybody.